So if you feel like clicking away because you don't feel like you need anything sad at the moment, then this is your chance. If not, and if you still want to hear the story, then welcome. And if you are new here, then please like and subscribe. So, how should I begin this? I think at first I need to give you a kind of rundown of the events that led to my father's death. So I think he was diagnosed with cancer when I was 13 or 14, or even earlier, I don't even remember. But he got chemo, and I think he beat cancer the first time. I think when I was 18, I was applying for colleges, and because of an argument, I'm not gonna go into much detail here, but because of an argument, me and my father stopped talking. My parents were divorced, so fast forward a year or two, probably a year. I think we haven't spoken in a year. So fast forward a year, my boyfriend at the time kind of convinced me to get back in touch with my father. So I did that. So we kind of resumed communication. And I think soon after that, his cancer returned. And he went through chemo again. Now he couldn't really afford to stop working. My dad had multiple jobs all throughout his life, but at the time, I think he wanted to pursue his long life dream of being a truck driver. So I think he had been doing it for the past at least 2 or 3 years at that point, so he couldn't really sit still, so he just wanted to get back to work right after a chemo session, which was not advisable. He was doing trips outside the country as well, so he used to travel maybe even 1,000 miles on a trip sometimes. So anyway, one day he was supposed to come back home, so he texted me in the morning at like 8 a.m. or something that he's gonna call me as soon as he enters the country, as soon as he crosses the border. Mind you, this is Europe, by the way. So I was working as a cashier. I was in college, and I always try to get my lunch break later rather than sooner, just so I could have less time to work after lunch. I don't know if that makes sense for some of you, but I could take my lunch break whenever I wanted to. So I had 2 breaks and 1 lunch break, so 3 breaks in total on an 8-hour shift. So my breaks were like 10 minutes or something, and my lunch break was half an hour. So anyway, that day I don't know what came over me, but like 3 hours was into my shift. I've already taken my first break, and I called my manager to say that I want to go into my lunch. And even my manager was kind of surprised. And he looked at his watch and he's like, yeah, okay, go. So I go into my lunch, and I decide to ring my father. Again, I have not done this before. Usually I would wait for him to call me. I don't know what came over me, but anyway. So I call him, and for the first 20 seconds no one answers, which is so unlike him. And then someone answers the phone. So I'm really confused, because this person, this man, asks me, like, who am I? Am I his wife? He remarried after divorcing my mom. And I said, no, I'm his daughter. And he said, okay, well, you should know that your father was just taken in an ambulance right now. And they're taking him to a hospital nearby. And he said that he had a stroke. The guy gives the phone back to my father, which was at that time non-verbal because of the stroke. And then they take him to that hospital. So I call his wife and I let her know, and immediately she starts crying. Later on that day, I spoke to her, and she said she's heading there. There was like a significant distance there. She could only get there like the next day. So basically, when I went for college, I went to a university that was kind of far from my hometown. Probably like a 3-hour drive or so. So the border was actually close to that city. And they didn't take him to the same town I was in. It was just like a town that was further north from there. So from the town that I was born in, and obviously my father lived in the same town, and his wife, it must have been at least like a 4-hour drive from there. So I think she packed her bags, and I think she asked her brother to drive her to this town. So they only got there, I think, the next day. And I didn't know any details until the next day, because she has spoken to the guy that answered my phone call when I called. Basically what happened was that he parked his truck in a designated parking spot on the highway, and so had this other driver. And while they were parked, they talked for a bit. I think my dad asked him if he wants something. I don't know if it was food or anything else. Like, they made some small talk. I don't know. And then he went back to his truck. At some point, he saw my father eating a sandwich, but then he dropped the sandwich and he was just staring at the windshield. So he knew something was wrong, so he went to check on him. And that's when he realized he was non-responsive, and he probably realized he just had a stroke. So he calls an ambulance. The ambulance gets there, and that's when I ring. So that must be the reason why I was so, I don't know, like, I knew exactly when to go and break and exactly when to call. Otherwise, none of my family would have known where they would have taken him. They would have probably be super worried for a couple of days, because obviously he couldn't talk. So maybe at least until until he would have gotten to the hospital, and maybe someone answered his phone if someone was ringing, or I don't know, maybe some of the nurses would have called someone in his phone. But basically no one would have known for at least a couple of days until someone would have done something, because he wasn't able to speak. So the word got around that it was a miracle that I called when I called. And his wife was super grateful for me doing that, even though it wasn't planned or anything. So anyway, word of this came back to my mom, which was unaware that I was in contact with my dad again. And she asked me about it, and I remember lying, and I said, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. So anyway, afterwards, I think after a couple of months or so, my mom just encouraged me to get in touch with my dad, even though I wasn't in touch with him, but that's besides the point. He kinda recovered. Well, kinda is a kind of a strong word. He definitely recovered his speech after the stroke, and he could definitely use one hand and one leg, but the other hand and leg was a bit more difficult. So it wasn't great, especially with the chemo and all. I think the stroke was brought by the fact that he wasn't supposed to be working. He was very weak at the time. He was definitely supposed to be resting at home after chemo. I think that the treatment didn't work, but it definitely continued with it for a year or two after this, until it got to a point where someone discovered that actually it was the wrong treatment. I don't even know the details, but basically he was diagnosed wrong, and they've been treating him wrong from the beginning. So it was kind of an amazing thing that he actually got cured the first time around and went into remission. So again, I don't know a lot of details about his sickness, but yeah, he got to a point where nothing could have been done, so they just sent him home, and they gave him a couple of weeks or months to leave. I was still in the city where I had my university, so I went home to visit for my birthday for like a week or so. So I think I got there the week before my birthday. I don't even remember exactly on which date. It doesn't really matter. And I went to visit my father. I saw that he was in kind of a really bad condition, actually. And then my mom was dealing with a lot of stuff because both my grandparents, so her parents, my mom's parents, both had dementia, Alzheimer's, so she was caring for both of them, actually, which is very sad. My grandfather was actually kind of okay. He was still like cooking and taking care of himself and stuff like that. But my grandmother, she was She couldn't remember anything. She was almost non-verbal at this point. She was in bed all the time. And she had to be, cleaned, fed, etc. So I was staying with my mom at my grandparents because obviously she couldn't go away from there, and she had to care for them. So the day after I visited my dad, we go to sleep in my grandparents' living room on the sofa. It was like a sofa that could turn into a bed. You know what I mean? And my grandparents are sleeping in their bedroom. And at around 5 o'clock in the morning, I suddenly wake up and I just opened my eyes and I knew something was wrong, because there was something about the air in the room that didn't felt right. I don't know how to explain it. I looked at the clock. It was one of those clocks that kept ticking with every second, and the clock stopped. And I kept staring at it because I couldn't understand why the clock isn't working. And it was like the whole time stopped. And it was this heavy air in the room. And I definitely knew something was wrong, and that probably that my father has died. In the other room, the door was open to my grandparents' bedroom, so my mom could hear them if they need anything. And I could hear my grandma talking to someone, but no one was talking back. And that was really weird because, as I said, she was non-verbal at this point. And that just added more to my suspicion that my father passed away, because he used to have a really special connection to my grandmother, even though she was his mother-in-law. And maybe he came to say goodbye to her, and to me as well, but I was obviously kind of oblivious at that point. So I went back to sleep. As I said, it was 5 a.m, but it was like the sun was already up, so it was the room was lit up. I could perfectly see everything. But I went back to sleep. I wake up at around 9 a.m. and my mom comes to me and she says, "Your father died," etc. And at that point, I already knew. I think I was in the bathroom, I was washing my face, and I already knew before she told me. It was a very eerie moment. And also, after my father's funeral, word got out in the family again that I kind of knew when he died, and that's when I visited him, because I literally visited him the day before he died. Not even the day before he died, it was the day he died, because apparently he died around midnight the same day. I don't remember exactly the hour. I feel like I should know these details, but I don't. So, yeah, some of the family members and some of their friends started saying that he kind of waited to see me before he died. I don't know if any of these things are true, or if I really knew when to visit, or maybe it was just like a big coincidence. But for certain, I did feel him that morning. So yeah, as I said, this is not a or intuition played into this, or if this was how it was supposed to be. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's all I have for you tonight.